The tragic death of your mother and father. Escape crime spectacular. Hello, friend. Today, we're going back to the year 1986 in the North Carolina, where a man, a soldier, was put on trial for a heinous crime. Make a whole family disappear. However, after the trial, he was declared innocent. This is really driving people across the region. In that moment, I'm angry, but is that true? Or are there other mysteries? The location of the case is Fayetteville, North Carolina. U.S. military headquarters in Fort Bragg. Most people are involved in this case. They are soldiers, or their families in the military. That day was 10/5 years, a 985, in Summerhill Street in Fayetteville. Internet users are worried about their neighbors. The Eastburn family. House number 367. Because of the intense cry of the 18-month-old. Endlessly echoing. Janet wasn't too surprised at first, because she knew that their family had a small child, so it's normal to cry. But what's suspicious is that today baby keep crying like that. Until the next day, May 11th, it didn't stop. An extreme anxiety that hits the mind, because right now, the neighbor's house still doesn't have any movement. The newspapers on the front door have piled up a lot. That 01A I came to get, out of Kathryn Esburn's car. The baby's mother was parked right above the entrance as usual. There is no sign that the active family members inside the house, except for the baby's scary cry. Janet can't stand it. You decided to call the police. On 12/5, the police broke down the door to get inside. There they saw the scene. It's so horrible that it can't be described. The child is alone in the dark, in a state of severe dehydration. His body is pale, dirt on the skin. Diapers fall all over the ground, with dry tears on my cheeks. She was crying so much that when the police arrived, he just lay motionless on the floor. This child was finally saved. However, the fate of others is not so fortunate. The police found the bodies began to decompose, including Kathryn's 32-year-old mother and the Kara sisters, 5 years old Erin BA years old. Jana's youngest child was in that house alone for a few days, with dead bodies around. It's a really scary and dark scene. It's no different than a horror movie. So what happens? Year 1 ripe 70. This couple has a love affair. Beautiful last 5 years ago. To get married and welcome a little angel. Kara. In the year 1979 to Erin in the year 1982. And just a year later, the youngest princess, Jana, was also born. I thought their family would always be so happy. Kathryn faces single life. When her husband was Kerry, he was asked to attend military training in Alabama. Within 10 weeks. Family. Eastburn is getting ready for big changes. Because they will move. Fayetteville to start a new life. Gary will be stationed at an American base in England. Kathryn was not too worried. Since I decided to marry a soldier, you're also getting used to the distance. However, there was only one thing that made Kathryn worried about the upcoming journey. It's my beloved dog. They have a dog. It's called DC, and they're uncomfortable. Take your dog with you on a long road. They think that bringing the dog, going so far, is not good for its health. It's also quite old. So Kathryn decided to put an ad in the newspaper. Find a new owner to take care of the dog. On 7/5 a ripe 8/5, Kathryn got a call from a man that he decided to adopt. And I'll pick up Daisy right away. And then he thanked me. Make sure you take good care of the dog. And this man's name is Tim Henry. 11/5, exactly 4 days after the dog was picked up. The Eastburn family is packing. Gary was in Alabama that day. Call for wife. because it's an act every morning that they made a covenant with. But this time when Gary called, his wife didn't pick up. This immediately worried Gary, because Kathryn's never missed a call. Even though I was scared, I tried to calm myself. Your wife is busy, and she will respond immediately. But it's not that simple, because a whole day has gone by. He didn't call back, so Gary immediately called the police at the Fayetteville Review. Asked them to come check out their house. He said he felt really bad about himself. In fact, there was a police officer that day, knocking on the Eastburn family door. But the officer said the house was quiet, and they didn't really hear the baby's cry. Maybe the police came at an inappropriate time, but only the next day, May 12th. When requested, back again by the neighbor, the police found a frightening scene. They saw Kathryn Eastburn. The 32-year-old lay naked on the floor next to his bed. Her bra is pulled up on her chin. The pants were stripped off, and the panties inside were also cut. She was sexually assaulted and stabbed 15 times. Very deep knife babe Kara, only 5 years old, found under a blanket, also stabbed 5 times. And finally, 3-year-old Erin, severe damage to the chest and back. All 3 victims had their throats cut. During the investigation, there was no sign of intrusion, even though the unsub tried to clean it carefully. But they still leave clues. Remarkable. DNA found under Kathryn's fingernails, with blood and footprints on the floor. Kathryn's card, along with $300 that were stolen. The investigators believe that the accident, they all died within 48 hours of being found, and the killer was very good at hiding his tracks. When the police called to report, Gary in Alabama is waiting every minute, looking forward to hearing your wife's voice on the phone, to tell them they're safe, but ironically, it's a death call. He couldn't accept the devastation, that both his wife and children were brutally murdered. The investigation began soon after. All witnesses were interviewed. The French version. Talk about who's in the area on May 9th. And early morning 10/5. The murder was also committed at the time, but finding the clues is difficult. By the police, it's not clear what the killer's motive was. According to the words of relatives and neighbors around, Kathryn is a very kind woman. They are friendly and always know how to help others. She doesn't seem to have any enemies to worry about, because most people love you. So why? You and your 2 children were killed so horribly. Now, let's move on to another soldier. It's called the team. Bailey Hennis, who decided to adopt the family's DC dog. He was also one of the last. See the victims while they are alive. He was born 24 halves. Year 1958. Was a sergeant in the U.S. Army at Fort Bragg. I grew up in Rochester, Minnesota, and graduated high school 9 years 7/6. At the time of the murder, the teen was 2 or 7 years old. You and your wife Angela just had their first child. Kristen is only 10 weeks old. He and his wife Angela have a dog, Speed, and they want the dog to have a playmate. So he's been looking for that too, in a local newspaper advertisement. By the way, you've seen Kathryn's ad, looking for someone to adopt the DC dog. So, I immediately went to Eastburn's house on May 7th to pick him up. Dogs, and then on May 9th, just 2 days after receiving DC, he called to speak to Kathryn Eastburn. But it's just a normal conversation. He's just asking about stuff, about the interests as well as the situation of the DC dog. In testimony, the same team said 9/5. He drove his wife and little daughter to his mother-in-law's house. They're there to have fun, then go home directly, and just stopped for a moment at the gas station. But there's nothing, proof of his words, because the camera system wasn't developed at the time. There was also a witness who said, I saw a car, white Chevrolet, outside the Eastburn house. in the early morning of May 10th, accidentally changing the team. Henry also owns a white Chevrolet. Another witness also described to see a man early in the morning that day outside the Eastburn house. A blonde white man. Wear early members' jackets. They drew a manuscript, and that person actually has a lot in common. Compared to the shape characteristics of birds, he's scared, and immediately when he sees the information on, knows that you went to the police to try to do whatever it takes to justify purity. Tim insists the killer wasn't himself. I asked them to take any test. You think you are one. Soldiers who serve the country and has a great military record, so they have to trust him. The police held him for more than 7 hours for his testimony. Blood, saliva, fingerprint, DNA, and Tim have completely cooperated with them. Remember that this is the year 1985. DNA is not what it is today. In fact, it almost didn't exist at the time. But the team said, let's take my sample. Take everything. That would prove my innocence. The witness provided important information. Let the police draw. Dow's handout was a sanitation worker named Patrick. Because of the nature of the job, so he often starts working very early. He told police that around 3:30 a.m., I saw a white man wear a member-only black jacket and take a bag of trash out of Eastburn's house. The police kept Patrick. Henry Bird request. Participate in a mediation with a witness. When you see the bird, Patrick immediately pointed at him and confirm that's who you see. So even if the team is free, after hours of detention, the police decided to come home. The team charged him with 3 counts of murder, most and 1 count of sexual assault. Although then, I've used every means to prove my innocence. But the situation is not possible, because he also owns a member-only jacket. It's black, and he just brought it to the laundry. A neighbor also said they'd seen birds in the backyard pouring liquid. The ignition ignited a barrel of Fye for about 5 hours. The neighbor was asked, Bird, I've never burned anything in my backyard before, so this is weird. It was more than a surprise bird that day. Pay rent to the owner, while he's always a regular debtor. And coincidentally, that's the face value. Like the stolen money. $300 more. The police also found Kathryn's bank card. It is also used, not long ago, by a witness. They said they saw a tall man, blonde, use it. At that point, all the clues were on Henry's team. So when the county authorities, Cumberland, arrested him, they're sure they caught the right person. However, in December, Hennis, he was released after his lawyer argued that the police didn't have enough hard evidence to show this young soldier's involvement in the murder. Horror. Henry returned to court. His lawyer also established the arguments are perfect. The words of witnesses. Year 1985. DNA testing hasn't been detected as of today, and the blood samples don't seem to be well defined. So he thinks there's no physical evidence. Identify the team at the scene. Everything is just external evidence. The trial of Henry's team's murder happened on May 2nd, 1986. A year after the case. Tim had earlier refused to deal with the sentencing, and he declared, he said he didn't accept the deal. When you are not guilty. The father of the bird's wife. A senior IBM employee. I hired 2 lawyers to protect my son. The prosecution has produced a lot of images and information about the bloody case, the brutality of the victims. Just let the bird see and analyze his reaction. But he didn't take any suspicious actions. Some people say it's obvious because of you. I'm really guilty. While others say that he tries not to react because I want to distract. If he cries, they'll assume he feels guilty. If he doesn't cry, that proves he's a cold-blooded killer. Finally, the jury took only 10 hours to declare Henry's team is guilty on all counts, waiting for the second trial to take place. In February 1989, the Byrds spent 2 years in prison waiting for the death penalty. But pay attention to Patrick, the restroom, who saw Tim leave there in the morning. Because he's an unreliable witness, his testimony is the best. He said he saw the team clear as day on the street at 3 o'clock in the morning. But then the police found out that day the fog was so thick that flights on the same day to postpone. Other evidence says they saw Byrds in the machine ATM within 3 minutes. But when the police revisited the incident, 3 minutes is too long to stand at the ATM. This is obviously a bit suspicious. So is the Byrd the killer? Finally, there's a key proof. By the sponsor. There's a neighbor from the Austin family. I was walking around the neighborhood at the time, and this guy looks like a Byrd. He also has blonde hair, the same height as Tim, and he also has a membroless jacket. When the defense brings this guy in, people are amazed, because they think that person could be Tim's twin brother. With the court, there is not enough physical evidence and testimony of the accusation. Tim Henry is officially a free man. He was declared innocent and returned to his family. After freedom, Tim decided to join the army. And he's built a formidable reputation. You're getting promoted in the U.S. military. He served in Somalia, Iraq, and has a long history of service. Tim Henry is reunited with life, reunited with his wife, and watched his daughter grow up. It may be hard to believe, but it's actually happened. The life of the team continues, but this story doesn't stop. 2004 team left the Army with high honors, retired at Fort Lewis, Bang, Washington. This is an ending. Promote happiness for veterans to go through worrying allegations. As for the victim's family, Carrie Eastburn and her daughter are alive, moved to London to try to forget the tragedy. But then they went back to America, settling in Washington, near where teen Hennis and his family live. They live in fear, for fear to meet the person they believe killed their loved one. In 2006, a breakthrough occurred. DNA technology. Advanced technology has helped reopen cold cases and reinvestigate. A detective is looking at the files and accidentally discovered the Eastburn family murder case. Thanks to this technology, the case is finally solved. Because there's too much hiding, so they decided to reopen the investigation. Henry's team once again goes through trials on the case, and now thought it was done. The police kept the team safe, and when they checked, it matched perfectly. The team went through 2 trials and was acquitted. But note that in the military, there's a key point. They will have a separate court, so the team can be tried in that fashion. Even if the unsub goes through a lot, trial and civil math, they can still be tried militarily. September 2005, the team is back in full swing. He officially became a member of the military. He was in service just a year after joining. He was charged with murder. His third trial began in March 2010. During the 3-week trial, the heaviest and most important evidence is the ADN sample. The defendant tried to establish that the fingerprint hair and the blood doesn't match Dennis' team. This is true because there's a lot of evidence. I can't conclude that it's actually a Byrd, that it can be directed to someone else. But what's important is that the police find out. DNA. It was found inside Kathryn's body, and it's certainly undeniable. But now Tim says that 25 years ago, he had sex with Kathryn, but he forgot to report it. However, 1AI believes these excuses. Henry was finally sentenced to death in April 2010. He was demoted by the SA and lost everything. This time, his appeals were not accepted, and now the Byrd is sitting in the death row. The last time a soldier was executed is the year 1961. So it's safe to say that Byrds can never be like that. And he tried a lot to apply to appeal, as well as trying to get out of the situation. It can be said that the teen, Henry, will be on death row for the rest of his life. And that's the proper punishment, to comfort the families of the victims. In the end, justice is done. And that's the story of today. How do you see the case? Do you have any thoughts? Comment below. Thank you for watching all the videos. Hello, and see you later.